Hello, my YouTubers. Welcome to All Sex Talk, your channel on alternative sexuality. This is Master Taíno, and today we're going to start talking more about master-slave relationship. This is Master-Slave 101, the basic. What is this all about, these relationships that we call it the master and slave? Okay, this is pretty much a power exchange relationship. That's a term have been used for many years. Now there is a trend to call it authority-based relationship. And also a lot of people call it dominant submissive, but those are more traits that we may have, but not necessarily the way we define our relationship. But basically is one person has control, the other one relinquish, surrender that control to make a relationship work. So that is pretty much it. It's based on control. What there's one person who control and one person who give up the control. Everybody has a definition, and I'm no exception. So I have my own that I have created throughout the years based on my own personal experience. My definition says a master is a very special and unique human being who craves to take responsibility for the well-being, growth, and development of his slaves. There's no talk there about sex and BDSM, who is what the moral people are thinking. No. First of all, we are unique people. This is not for everybody. The fantasy could be, but not the relationship. And we are human beings, and we crave. It's part of who we are. That's the important thing. And what we do is we take responsibility for the slave, for the whole human being, for his well-being, his growth, his development. That's what really is all about. Slave definition, very similar. A slave is also a very special and unique human being, not a thing, who craves to surrender in service and obedience to the master that he or she trusts and respects. The key words in these two definitions is responsibility by the master, surrender by the slave. And when we talk in that definition of slave, we say surrender in service and obedience. We didn't say surrender in sex and BDSM. And I'm getting there. I'm getting to that point. The other important thing is the end. You surrender to a master that you trust and respect. One thing that I have seen way too often is slaves are craving so much for being in service, for being owned by a master, that, you know, they go with the first asshole who knocked the door. And you got to be careful. You have to know that the person you are giving yourself to, that's a big thing to do, is somebody worthy and somebody that you can look up to and you can trust and you can respect. And that trust and that respect has to be earned by the master. I don't like that thing that some master has that, well, I'm the master, you got to trust me, you got to respect me. No. You behave, you conduct yourself in a way that you can earn that trust and that respect from your potential slave. That is the key. So a slave has to be very aware who you surrender to. So those are my two definitions. My mentor, and I am honoring him wearing this t-shirt, talk a lot about heart and spirit. What he meant is we are born. We are born to be masters. We are born to be slaves. It's in our heart. It's in our spirit. And you remember the video I did about why we are kinky. And we talk about childhood. Yeah. Since we're childhood, I knew that I like this stuff. I didn't know what it was, but I was already attracted to certain concepts, certain ideas that take me to where I am in my journey now. So we have the heart and the spirit of mastery and slavery, okay? In my classes, I draw a triangle. I say I'm very gay, so I like to draw triangles. This triangle has three, obviously, three sides, and I put the three key words that we relate to what we do. Sex in one, BDSM in the other, and the two key words of my definition, responsibility and surrender. A lot of people think that a master-slave relationship is all about sex and BDSM. And guess what? From those three things that I just mentioned, those are the two who are not required to have a master-slave relationship. To have a master-slave relationship, you require the master to take responsibility, the slave to surrender in service and obedience. That is the key. That is what makes the relationship. The sex and the BDSM, look, those are activities. Activities that we use to connect, that we could use to develop the dynamic, because in both sex and BDSM, there is some responsibility, some surrender, for, of course, but they're not required. Obviously, when we have all three, as I said, it's a good soup. It works. It is more completed. But you could have, and you're going to see examples in future videos of people who has master-slave relationships where there is no sex or no BDSM or neither of both. But it has to be responsibility, and it has to be a surrender in service and obedience. That's what is important to understand. This is not a game. This is not a role play. This is a way of life. This is the way we live our lives, by taking responsibility and surrendering. And the sex and the BDSM is part of it. It's an activity that we have as part of our relationship, but again, it's not required. And I have had relationships where sex is not included, or BDSM is not included, okay? Another very important thing that a lot of people ask, what about love? Where love fits in master-slave? Well, it does. And for me, it's required. It's a loving relationship. It's a caring relationship. My mantra in my journey as a master is dominant and caring. Yes, I'm a very dominant person. Yes, I'm a very caring person. I care deeply for those who surrendered to me. But there is a difference when we talk about love, and that's what we have to understand. In my case, I prefer to love my slaves with master love and receive their slave love, which is different to romantic love. And in our society, it seems that the only love that exists is romantic love. And just look around you. You love different people in your life in different ways. Your parents, your siblings, your friends, etc. You all have different type of loves. So master slave for me is different. It's a master love and a slave love. But can a couple be in love in a master-slave relationship? Absolutely. But you got to understand something. When you are in love with your slave, or your slave is in love with a master, plus you have obviously the master-slave relationship, what you're having is two relationships in one. And that becomes a challenge. You have to figure out how you keep, particularly the master-slave relationship, alive. Because if you don't keep that relationship, the things that are that could feed that relationship, you are going to end up with a romantic relationship, and the master-slave is going to go away. So that is where you have to be careful. How you do that? Well, you create some protocols, some rituals, some directives to keep that alive. For example, I remember I used to have a friend that he had a slave, and they were romantically involved, but the slave will sleep with the shackles at night. So the slave will go to bed knowing that he's a slave, even though he is in love with his master, and wake up in the morning knowing that he's a slave. Others do mantra. First thing the slave do in the morning is kneeling before his master and recommit his service to the master. And then there's all kind of different protocols that are established for the slave to keep that and feed that relationship. Because the difference is that you have, as I said, you have two relationships in one. The romantic is partners; those are equals. The master and slave are different. There is a power exchange. One has the power, the other one relinquishes the power. So you got to work on that to keep both of them alive. But it's possible, and a lot of people do it, and a lot of people also fail. So that's why it's important to know how to do it. So this is the basic idea of master-slave. Please make sure that you get out of that fantasy that a master is one who has a slave that he could fuck all the time, that's what it's all about. No, that's not what this is all about. Or there is all about BDSM. No, those are powerful forms in which we connect with each other, and always involve also the control and the power exchange. Usually the master is the dominant in a dungeon, and when they're practicing BDSM, and but you know, the master really could do whatever. And it's interesting, a lot of slaves ask me that, can they do BDSM as tops? And I said, sure. And sometimes a slave learn to do some BDSM things to help his master when the master has other slaves or other trainees or other guests to play with. So that's perfectly okay. The same as sex, the same as sexual part. Master doesn't mean top. Yeah, most of the time master do top, but if a master want to bottom, that's his choice. And the slave doesn't mean bottom. They normally are the bottoms, but doesn't mean that they cannot top. So let's take those misconceptions out of the way. So you know, I am an educator in master-slave relationships. So throughout the time, we are going to be talking in more details about master-slave relationship. This was just the basics 101 for you to have an idea of what we're coming next. So I invite you to come back, subscribe, and let's continue be friends here and learning from each other. See you in the next time.